The Beacon, celebrating when God uses the unexpected to do the unexplainable.
Hey, well, greetings and welcome to The Beacon. My name is Steve Woods. I'm your host. We're thrilled that you have decided to listen into this episode today, whether you're listening on 960 The Patriot or you're listening in your car driving around through a podcast, on the treadmill. If you're on the treadmill, keep trucking. You're doing great. You look good. Keep it up. And, regardless of your story or where you're tuning in today, we're just delighted that you're listening. Thank you for tuning into The Beacon, which is made possible by Phoenix Christian Preparatory School. The Beacon, every week we have a chance to celebrate how God uses the unexpected to do the unexplainable. And today, this story is no exception to that. God is always working, always doing things, and occasionally he invites us to be a part of the things that he's doing. And I'm thrilled again today to have in studio my co-host and friend, Jeff Blake, Superintendent of Phoenix Christian. Jeff, thanks for being here.
Good morning, Steve. Thank you. And today is going to be a great show.
Yeah, we're just really excited. We're also going to welcome to the program today Marc Burmich. Marc is the president and CEO of Choices Pregnancy Centers here in the Phoenix and Arizona area. Marc, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks for having me.
We're just so grateful that you could make time to be with us this morning, and so excited about the ways in which God is daily working in, through, and around your availability, that of those you work with, and certainly those lives that you get the chance to serve. And we want to talk a lot about Choices, but before we do, let's give the listeners just a chance to know a little bit about you. We were talking off air. You're a longtime Arizona guy, is that right?
Yeah, I'm a proud Arizona native of 41 years now, specifically. I love this state. You spent some time here when I was really young. Then we moved up to Flagstaff for about 5 years. Then moved back down to the Valley. Attended Northwest Christian School.
Go Crusaders.
Yes, go Crusaders, class of 97.
Woo-woo.
And met my wife actually in kindergarten, which is a fun story I always like to tell. And my mother-in-law still has the class photo.
I love it.
Yeah. And so we, kind of knew each other on and off through school. And then she went to Cactus High School, much to my dismay. But
the Cobras of Cactus.
That's right. But we reconnected on sort of a blind date after high school, and we've been married almost 20 years now. Have two beautiful daughters, 11 and 13, and I've been blessed. Got a great family. So,
yeah. That's great. Well, we figure at this point that anybody who's been in Phoenix, for longer than 25, 30 years is kind of an adopted native. But you're the real deal. That's pretty cool.
The real deal. Got the sunburns to prove it.
Yeah, you have the dermatologist on speed dial as well.
Oh yeah. He's favorite customer. Yeah.
Well, that's great. And one of the other things I found interesting as we were talking before the show is that you live not far from where you grew up.
Yeah, about 2 miles, as a matter of fact. And my wife we live about 1.5 miles from her childhood home as well. So didn't travel too far from home.
Okay, so when you say sort of a blind date, what makes it? What's the difference between a blind date and sort of a blind date?
Well, having not seen or talked to that person in about 5 years at that point, we had two mutual friends that said, "Hey, why don't you guys come hang out with us one night?" I said, "Okay," and the rest.
Oh, that's cool. The rest is history. That's amazing. So now, what you do every day, all day, is just so frontline, mission critical, and I'm candidly just really honored to have the chance to talk with you and learn more about the ways in which God's using your availability. But again, we talked a little bit off air. What you're doing today isn't necessarily something you saw yourself doing or thought was going to be a part of your story years ago. Lead us up to, you get out of high school, you've got a career, you're married, you've got a couple of daughters, and what did that look like? And then how has God redirected your path?
Sure. That's a great way to put it. We always have a plan for our lives, and then God says, no, we're going this way. And that's when things get really exciting. But yeah, I've spent the past 2 decades working mainly in the marketing, advertising, and creative space. Over the last decade, I really moved more to a consultancy role, working with startups, nonprofits, charities, and so forth. And over the past 5 years, really focusing on the startup space, local Arizona startups, helping them with go-to-market strategies, how to build a business plan, getting venture capital, that sort of thing. And I've been blessed. My career has let me work with about 26 companies in 9 industries at this point. So it's given me a wide breadth of knowledge with business specifically. How I came to be with Choices is I was invited to a fundraising dinner in 2007. And for those that are listening that were there that night, Eric Metaxas, the author, was the keynote. Brilliant author, did a great job. But it was actually the testimony of a lead nurse, Michelle Tussing, who is still with us today. She's our director of nursing. She gave her testimony about the day in the life of being a nurse at Choices, meeting with clients, conducting the ultrasound, talking with them, praying with them, and just pouring her heart out. And at the end, she made this one statement that just hit me right between the eyes. And she said, sometimes we win and sometimes we lose. And that was it. And it had a profound impact on me. And I left that night. I told my wife, I said, I've got to get more involved in this. And out of that spawned something called the Project Zero Collective, which I founded. And it was in conjunction with other creatives across the country. We would create products and sell them online, much like Etsy functions today. But the proceeds would go to pro-life organizations. That led me to a conversation with the then chairman of the board at Choices. And he said, hey, would you be interested in joining the board at Choices? Which had never crossed my mind, but I prayed about it and said, sure. Was on the board 3.5 years at Choices. During that time, my predecessor, Raul Reyes, we were out to lunch one day and he said, hey, I've been praying and I think you're the person to take over when I'm done. And I leaned over across the table and looked at him right in the eyes and I said, Raul, I think you're crazy. And 2019, around June, I was presented to the board. I presented my plan that I had prayed over for about 3 months. And it was, that was it. I was voted in, and it's been 1 year actually this month. And it's been an incredible journey. My faith has grown exponentially in the year that I have been with this organization, but in a profoundly great way.
Yeah. Well, you alluded to it, and Solomon wrote, "The mind of a man plans his ways, but what the Lord orders our steps." And that's the thing. And yet, I think there's a mindset that I hear in your story, which is something that Jeff and I frequently joke about, and I would say maybe it doesn't apply as much to you in some way, but to all of us a little bit. In that, God, if you really can use anybody, would you prove it by using a knucklehead like me in some way? And so to hear your story, to hear the gifting that God gave you, the experiences that He exposed you to, the breadth of industry that you had a chance to work with, and also the passion that you have for the sanctity of life and having the chance to rescue some of the most vulnerable that will ever be out of the jaws of a premature death. And there you sit in 2007, and God gives you a glimpse then of something that was going to come to fruition now 12 years later, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It's been an incredible journey. And you just mentioned it earlier. At times the path seems so incoherent. And I always say, but God,
right.
He sees it. He's got it mapped out. To us, we're the ant here on the ground. We can't see too high over the ridge. How does this all play out? How does this all tie in together? And yeah, to your point, here we are. I'm not a pregnancy resource center guy. I tell that to everybody. But my predecessor said, that's why I think you're the person. This place doesn't need a pregnancy resource center guy. We need somebody different with your skill set. And I believe that was God laying that on his heart at that point in time, even though I thought he was crazy at the time.
Well, when one of us in a household takes that journey, we don't take it alone. So, you've got a wife and 2 daughters. Talk to us a little bit about the journey your family's been on and how God's growing your family through the walk and the experience.
Well, I would be remiss if I did not mention my family with my parents. I'm very blessed, had great parents, raised me in a godly home, raised me in the church, excellent examples of just what a marriage should be in Christ. My biggest fans, biggest supporters, biggest advocates. Same with my grandparents, who have all passed on at this point, but just a great foundation. And I always share, as part of my prayer every morning, I just thank God for the foundation that he gave me with those individuals, right? But with my family, it's absolutely been an adjustment. I'm 100% in what I do at Choices, and oftentimes it takes quite a bit of time to do it effectively, plain and simple, like we all know. But they've been unbelievably supported. They're excited about it. Both my daughters want to work at Choices when they're old enough and volunteer and become advocates. And that's the most moving thing for me to hear, because they understand what it is we're doing and the work that's being done there. But it's all about just trusting that this is where God wants us, especially my wife and I. She's been unbelievably supportive from day one. And when I told her that what Raul had said over lunch, she turned to me and she said, just do it. She said, it's the right thing. Do it, And so I don't know if that's women's intuition or what that was, but she was dead on. She knew it. So.
Yeah, I'm so grateful. Like you, I benefit from that kind of a legacy. And I think that every day I'm mindful of how desperately I want to leave for my kids and my grandkids
2 minutes.
A similar legacy. It's God's divine, gift that I couldn't have done anything to earn. I don't deserve that platform that I've been given in that foundation, but I'm exceedingly grateful for it. And I think maybe as time passes and we age, we realize and we see more life and we see how unique and unusual it is. Unfortunately, becoming to have that kind of legacy, just so desperately want that for those that would come behind us as well. And it's super cool to know that it's not just you. You have this army of support, that comes at you consistently with encouragement and like you said, your biggest fans, and that just goes a long ways on the days when you think, man, I'm just a little bit out of gas, and then hey, it's not just me, there's everybody we're pulling for. So
1 minute.
Really, really cool. Well, again, if you're just tuning into the program today, you picked a great episode to listen to as we get to know Marc Burmich and we talk a little bit about Choices Pregnancy Centers. In this next segment, when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about that vision. We're going to talk a little bit about where God's taking Choices Pregnancy Centers under Marc's leadership, and you're just not going to want to miss it. There's some really cool things going on. And again, thank you for tuning into The Beacon. Thank you to Phoenix Christian for sponsoring the program, and thank you to Marc for being on the program today. We're thrilled that you've chosen to tune in. We're excited about where we're headed, and we look forward to having you come back and join us as we get into this next segment of The Beacon.
The Beacon is presented by Phoenix Christian, a school celebrating excellence in education since 1949. Learn more at phoenixchristian.org.
Hey, welcome back to The Beacon. My name is Steve Woods. I have the honor of being your host for today's program. On The Beacon, we celebrate ways in which God uses the unexpected to do the unexplainable. And today, Jeff, we have as our guest Marc Burmich from Choices Pregnancy Centers. He's the president, he's the CEO, and he's a guy who's on a journey that God put him on. And I think it was, you said back in October that you had an opportunity to attend a banquet. Jeff, tell us about that experience. Tell us about your impression, and then we'll let Marc talk a little bit about where the organization is headed.
Certainly, as an individual committed to education and committed to life change, I sat in the banquet that evening and was just overwhelmed by the stories. They did a really incredible job of just laying out the power of impact of an organization like Choices in individual lives. And Marc, just the beauty of that evening was the story of a mom in a really significant place of transition and some terrible choices. And then you, through the evening, fast forwarded that narrative to the very end, 20 or so years later, and my wife and I both sat there in tears, inspired to further commit to the ministry that we love and care for, but even compelled to be supporters of what you and your organization are doing. And in particular, when you were sharing, I walked away as a leader, inspired by your leadership and your vision to leverage things such as social media and digital content, and a vision to extend the boundaries of what Choices is doing. So I just want to affirm you, encourage you, leader to leader. I'm inspired by you, what you're doing in the organization and your vision for next steps.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah. As far as what we have, as far as the vision is concerned for this organization, like I shared during that banquet dinner, it's really just an expansion of what we do and making sure that the individuals around our community can easily find us and know that we're there. I still describe Choices, even with our incredible history, 40 years in existence, 200 and almost 40,000 clients served. We're still the best kept secret in the state of Arizona. And the first thing that I wanted to do when I came in, outside of sort of a rebranding of the organization, was how do we better communicate with our client base? And our main mechanism for doing that is our website. And we undertook a massive revamp of our website. We actually went from 2 websites down to 1, which in the Pregnancy Resource Center space is very unconventional. We had one for supporters and one for clients. We were very intentional about it. And just as reference, I've probably built about 300 websites in my lifetime, so I'm familiar with the process. But we held focus groups. We talked to our client advocates, our nursing staff, our clients, everybody, to understand how do we make this as impactful as possible. So in February of this year, we launched our new website, choicesaz.com. And even in talking with our donor base about wanting to combine the sites, they loved the idea. They're like, yeah, I want to see where my money's going. I want to be able to go to that site, still be able to interact with you on a donor site, but see where my money is going as well. But since launching that site, our traffic has gone up significantly. My objective for that site was that a mother would be able to find the nearest location and book an appointment in 20 seconds or less. And right now you can do that. And another big part of that was making it available in multiple languages. And in May of this year, we launched the Spanish version of our site as well. And by the time the site is done, it will never be finished. It will always be a work in progress. I suspect there'll be about 20 different languages available for the site. And I'm all about breaking down barriers whenever we can to meet the client exactly where they're at that moment. We may only get one shot at that woman finding our site at that moment in time. And if there's any hiccup, anything in the way, they won't move forward. And so it's crucial for us to be able to communicate clearly to them. Yeah.
Yeah, like you said, it's a critical moment, for them, the courage it takes even to go to the website. And as they're trying to make really important directional decisions that many times are daunting. The last thing you need is a glitch in that experience that deters or distracts from that moment. And, having scanned through the website, it's clear that it's done, for usability, for the sake of expediency, and just the images that are used. It's all very intentional, and congratulations on getting that launched, and then adding the Spanish language to it is critical, and the vision for other languages, and breaking down those barriers and those hurdles to make a pathway to hopefully create a relationship with these clients that allows them to find a resource in the form of people who care, people they can trust, and people that are really committed to their welfare.
Absolutely. Yeah, we really wanted to touch on a wide range of topics that we discovered through talking with our client base they're searching for elsewhere. But we want to be able to talk to that, but from a biblical perspective as well. I'd rather them get the information that they want from us in that context than going anywhere else. So, one of the other things that was on my radar was really telling the full story of what Choices does. Right now we tell what I call a very myopic story. It's an amazing story and we love it, but we talk about that life being saved. That's amazing. But you know what? There's a whole lifetime before and after that moment in time. And one of the new initiatives that we're working on that kind of got pushed back a little bit because of COVID, but is still very much on the front burner, is called Community Stories, where we in a documentary style, we highlight different clients and walk through their journey before, during, and after Choices to highlight what impact this had, not on just their decision for life, but possibly their marriage, their relationship with friends, family, colleagues. Because what I see when I've been at Choices just for a year now, our impact transcends just that counseling room, just that center. We're really planting the seed of you're made by God, you are loved, you have self-worth, you are important, there is a plan for you. That changes people's lives, even if there's just a conversation. And that impacts their relationships and how they view those around them and the world around them. And so we're really excited to get that kicked off. There's a lot of other strategy that's going into that community stories portion. It also allows us to reach a larger audience outside of just the quote unquote pro-life segment. It allows us to tell just a community impact story. The genius of it is that it's always going to point back to choices. So it's always an avenue back, but it allows us to really tell, like I said, the true story of what we do here day in and day out on a much broader scale.
It's cool to hear you say that, Mark, because I think through, the recording of Jesus' activity in the Gospels and how so frequently he met an immediate or physical need that somebody had, but his aim was always to transform their lives for the sake of eternity. And, you're meeting people at a crisis point often in their lives. They have an immediate need. You're meeting them there. You're caring for them. You're having an opportunity to have an impact. But your greater aim is transformation that exceeds that moment or that situation. It's something that impacts lives of the people that are in their lives, that are going to follow them, that are going to be around them, and it has a much broader reach than that moment. And it's really cool to hear you articulate that's the broader vision and the bigger story. So community stories is going to be something that you continue to develop and add and have the chance to celebrate. And that's what we're about here on the Beacon, is celebrating cool things that God's doing, stories that can't be told apart from him. We come back in this next segment. I hope that we have a chance to hear a little bit about one of those community stories, one of those opportunities that you've had to make a difference, not just for the sake of a moment, but for the sake of eternity, for the sake of the kingdom of God. So thank you for listening to the Beacon. Come back to us. Join Mark as he talks with us more in the next segment.
The Beacon is made possible by Phoenix Christian and listeners like you.
Welcome again to the Beacon. I am thrilled that you have chosen to tune in. We're stoked to have on our program this morning Marc Burmich from Choices Pregnancy Center. Also in our virtual studio this morning, we have Jeff Blake, Superintendent of Phoenix Christian. Thank you, Jeff and Mark, for being a part of the program. This has been really cool to get the opportunity to hear not just about Choices Pregnancy Centers, but about Mark, your personal journey and the way God ordered your steps to be in a position as president and CEO of an organization that you were drawn to as far back as 2007, but as of 2019 now have the chance to be at the helm, and the support that you have from your family, and just the way that God's honoring your availability. It's been amazing to hear. As we talked about in the last segment, there's a much bigger and broader picture than the really important task of saving unborn lives. I mean, there's no way to minimize that, but it's a moment that introduces you to a person and ultimately to people they're in connection with, and you have a much bigger aim, a much broader goal than just that moment in their lives. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the recent stories that we just had come through our doors, and we actually shared it on our impact report, which just went out last week. We had a phone call come in to one of our centers. The woman on the end of the call was crying. She was determined to get an abortion, and she had gone to a local abortion clinic. And she said that they were very rude to her. They were very cold. They wouldn't give her any consultation before the abortion. And that's all she wanted. She just wanted to talk to somebody beforehand. And out of her frustration, she went online searching for an alternative, and she found us. So on the phone, we listened to her, and our front staff are the most gracious and incredible people in the world. They're doing a fantastic job. And they listened to her and they said, we don't refer for or perform abortions. They said, but we would love to have you come in. We offer free pregnancy tests and free ultrasounds. And so right there on the phone, she booked her pregnancy test. And when she came in, she met the advocate, and the advocate listened to her story. And she shared her concerns and her fears about having this baby, all the reasons why she shouldn't have this child. And among her many questions was, quote, why is Choices still open during the corona emergency, and why are you so happy? And the advocate said this was the perfect segue into a spiritual conversation. Where does my peace come from? Why am I happy? Why am I here talking with you today? Talking about what we call at Choices greater love. That's greater love found only in Jesus. And that's what she shared with her in that room. And that woman came back in for her ultrasound appointment. As soon as she saw her advocate in the hallway, she was so excited. She blurted out, "I'm keeping the baby." And that story is just so impactful and so representative of what happens almost every week at our centers. It's fear, it's panic, it's I can't do this, and here's all the reasons why. And it's relying on that peace found in Christ to say, no, let me tell you why, to this point, why I'm here, why I'm happy, and why I have peace, and sharing that with them.
You know, I struggle for the words to respond. I mean, that's the difference. That's the States. Where can somebody go, Marc, who is listening to the program today? Maybe
1 minute.
You know, this was a best kept secret, like you said, for them. They didn't know. Do we invite them to the website, choicesaz.com, to learn more?
Choicesaz.com is the place to learn more about giving, volunteering, employment opportunities. We have ways of getting involved in almost every way that you can imagine, and we welcome everybody's support in every capacity.
Well, that's great. I encourage you to go check it out. I also encourage you to come back to this next segment where we find out how the intersection of Phoenix Christian and Choices comes together through the life of a young lady who is a recent graduate, 2020 graduate from Phoenix Christian. It's her capstone project in her senior year. God led her to Choices, and we'll hear directly from her in this next segment. Come on back, and you'll enjoy the story.
Phoenix Christian believes strongly in its rich history and bright future, now equipping students from pre-K through 12th grade. Learn how you can help continue its legacy of Christ-centered education at phoenixchristian.org/support. You're listening to The Beacon, presented by Phoenix Christian.
Hey, well, greetings and welcome back to The Beacon. If you happen to just be tuning into this episode of The Beacon, we want to welcome you. We want you to know that we are honored to have as our guest Marc Burmich from Choices Pregnancy Centers. They have 4 locations around the valley. They have an amazing website at choicesaz.com, and they're on a mission. And we've been talking a little bit, Marc, about how God's using your availability and those that availability of those who work within the organization, how God has continued to bless this institution that's been around for quite a while, and how God's affecting people's lives day in and day out.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, so super cool. As we talked, we kind of wrapped up that last segment. We heard a story from you of a personal account of a woman who was at a crisis point in her life, had an opportunity to be given hope, not just in her situation, but to have an explanation from a worker who had hope that she saw and peace that she didn't understand. And she had an opportunity to share the gospel with her, which was amazing. And, you know, we just find that as we all kind of go through, especially this season of our life and a global pandemic, it's kind of an interesting time, a time that nobody would choose or wish on anybody else. And yet here we find ourselves. And in the midst of that, life goes on. And, you know, for this class of 2020, who just finished, whether it was high school or graduation from a college degree, it was an unusual ending. And we're fortunate to have in this final segment one of those class members of a high school graduating class of 2020. Her name is Amelia Green. She graduated from Phoenix Christian. And Jeff, why don't you introduce us to Amelia and tell us a little bit about why she's on the program with us today.
Well, that would be my honor. Amelia is already a treasured alumna of Phoenix Christian. And Amelia, we're blessed that you're here this morning. Let me welcome you first. And Amelia is the embodiment of a vision that we started about 4 years ago. As a listener may or may not know, we build our middle school and senior high curriculum around what we call concentrations. And that can range anywhere from STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, to spiritual and leadership formation, humanities, or the fine arts. And the vision was at the conclusion of a graduating senior who is pursuing honors, that they would have the opportunity to present a project, the embodiment of what they've learned, their journey as a student, their journey as a future leader in the community, and execute the project and then present their project and their findings and the summary of their learning to a panel of our teachers. And so with that being said, let me say first, Amelia is a proud graduate of Phoenix Christian with honors. But Amelia, I'd like to invite you into the conversation. Share with us and the listener about your capstone project.
All right. So I was invited to partner with Choices Pregnancy Centers just to run a baby bottle drive through them. And what that is I partnered with my church, Bethany Bible, and we had a baby bottle drive where everyone in the church would take home baby bottles and fill them up with change and bring them back. And the project went for about 2 weeks. And when everyone returned the baby bottles, all of the profits went to Choices Pregnancy Centers in their hope of opening new centers and helping the community. And with that baby bottle drive, we were able to raise $6,213, which exceeded my expectations by so much. I was not expecting the amount of support that we got for this, not only for me and my project, but for Choices Pregnancy Centers. It was definitely a learning opportunity for me, and I was just glad to be able to help Choices in whatever way we could.
Now, Amelia, let me just add in here. First of all, congratulations. You're an inspiration.
Thanks.
And what I haven't told you privately is probably about maybe 6-7 years ago, I headed up a baby bottle drive at the school for Choices and didn't come anywhere close to what you raised. So I am super impressed. And then having served and had the opportunity to be one of your teachers over the years, you kind of like staying out of the limelight. You kind of like working behind the scenes. Is that fair?
Yes, it's very fair.
So the next thing I know, there you're standing in front of the congregation of Bethany Bible, and my heart was about ready to pound right outside of my chest. I was so proud of you and excited for you.
Yes, that was not by choice. I did not originally plan to do that.
Well, as a go ahead.
I got asked to speak in front of the congregation so that they would hear from me and my personal reasons why I was doing this to connect with them. And I was so stressed out and worried about it, but the people were there for me and they supported me, and it definitely wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. So it was overall a great experience.
We're proud of you.
Yeah, Amelia, I just want to echo Jeff and just say how cool it was to see you on the platform, to know you well enough to know that you are well outside your comfort zone, and to see that God honored your willingness and your obedience to that invitation in a way that really blew your mind beyond what you could have maybe asked for or imagined. I think you and I've talked about it, and the response was so overwhelming. I remember coming into the foyer saying, "How's it going?" You said, "Well, we're going to have to get more bottles. We just don't have enough bottles. There's too much of a demand." And I just think it's so cool. And I personally am grateful because, as we talked about earlier in the program, Marc refers to Choices Pregnancy Center as one of the best kept secrets. Not intentionally, but it's kind of been that way. That was my first exposure. I had not heard of the organization prior. I was excited to fill up a bottle and have the chance to be a small part in a larger ministry effort, and really, really proud of you for your willingness again to step outside your comfort zone on various levels. All of us in this conversation on this program today have been invited by the Lord at various times in various ways to go beyond our comfort and to experience some risk. And the result of that has always been that we didn't die. It wasn't as bad as we thought maybe it could be, and that God showed up and did things that only God can do. So we're just really grateful to you for modeling that for older dudes like us, and also for your peers and those that would come behind you. So we want to say thank you again, Amelia, for sharing your story. And Marc, do you have anything that you'd like to say to Amelia? Or
well, first of all, just thank you. We were talking before you came on, hearing about what you're doing and your involvement. I said, I'm not always excited about the future generations coming up, but when I hear about individuals like you and what you're doing, I get excited about the future. And, from all of us, thank you. That money goes to, quite simply, it goes to help save and transform lives, plain and simple. And I can't think of a better use of just some loose change in a baby bottle. So thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. It was incredible because we didn't see this pandemic coming, but that Pastor Allen, who I worked with, said that they had to cancel their biggest fundraiser, which was a Walk for Life, so that this baby bottle drive really helped you guys.
It did. Like everybody, we were impacted, and the Walk for Life, which is one of our largest fundraisers, went from physical to virtual overnight. So your involvement was a huge help at just the right time. So thank you.
So Marc, if somebody is listening that maybe is a part of a different body of believers, a different church in the Valley that hasn't had the opportunity to do something like that, and is Pastor Allen the right contact at Choices to get in touch with? I know you're moving to kind of a virtual method since churches aren't gathering in the way that they were at the time that Amelia did her project, at least at the moment.
Correct. Pastor Allen heads up all of our church relations. Yes, great guy. Probably one of the most compassionate individuals I think I've ever met. Was a missionary for 20 years in South America, but he's the point of contact there. And I feel compelled to do this, so I'm just going to do this. I'm going to give my personal email address right now, if that's okay.
Yep.
And it's Marc, M-A-R-C, at cpcphoenix.org. Anybody that wants to reach out to me, any comments, questions, I'd love to connect with you. Just, tell me what you like, what you don't like. Hey, I'm open to it. Just reach out, please.
That's great. I'm so glad that you were willing to do that. Thank you, Marc. And Amelia, what's next for you? You're a graduate. You're headed off to the next chapter. What does that look like for you?
Yes, so I am heading to college in Wisconsin to pursue a degree in nursing, which will hopefully lead me back to volunteering at Choices Pregnancy Centers one day, just helping them any way I can.
Well, that's fantastic. You're going to want to pack a coat. I'm not sure if you know this, but it's cooler in Wisconsin than it is in Arizona.
Yep, everyone's telling me that.
But you'll enjoy seasons like you never had before. You'll get to see some things that are also really beautiful and some really nice people there. And congratulations. What school will you be attending?
I'm going to Edgewood College in Madison.
Well, congratulations to you, and congratulations to Edgewood, because they gained an incredible young woman as a part of their student body coming up. We're honored that you joined us. We appreciate you being on the program, Amelia. I'm thankful for your friendship, and I'm proud of who God is making you to be, as I know your family and friends are also really proud. And Jeff, again, as we kind of turn the corner into the last third of our last segment, we really want to thank Amelia for being a part of the program. We want to thank you, Marc, for your willingness and your availability to join us for this episode. And Jeff, kind of tie a bow on that and give us an idea of how God is working in, through, and around Phoenix Christian as you prepare to relaunch an on-campus education experience.
Well, I appreciate that question. Let me just, again, take an opportunity to affirm, Marc, your leadership, your commitment to the community. I know at one of your centers we're neighbors. And I heard you say earlier in the show a desire even to have multiple languages on your website. And you and I both know we live and serve in a diverse community, and I appreciate your commitment to that.
Absolutely.
Phoenix Christian believes in you. We support what you're doing in Choices, and we're proud to champion what you're doing any way we can. I'm glad to give you a platform this morning on the Beacon. And just want to give you one more time to invite the listener how they'd get engaged with your organization.
Yeah, thank you. And again, thank you for having us. The easiest way to get involved is to go to choicesaz.com. When you're there, you click on the Get Involved link. You can learn how to volunteer, employment opportunities, donate, you name it.
That's incredible. And we're here to support and applaud what you're doing. For Amelia, thank you. Words can't express how proud we are and excited for your next steps in your journey. And Amelia, know that we're praying for you, we're rooting for you, and looking forward to you coming back and serving organizations like Choices.
2 minutes.
Thank you so much.
You bet, my dear. We're so proud of you. And this has been an exciting week here at Phoenix Christian. On our campus this morning and yesterday, a couple days ago, about 20 new employees. that we've taken the bold step to expand our infant care through preschool early education programs. And I want to invite the listener and to remind the listener that Phoenix Christian is committed from, as we celebrate Marc and his role in the community, infants all the way through 12th grade. And we are taking bold steps to expand our preschool program in a Christ-centered environment with individuals who are what we refer to as living curriculum. And I wanted to invite the listener too, to let them know that we are planning to be back August 6th. We meet twice a week and are fine-tuning details on some prudent safety and health measures, all the way from requiring our students and faculty and staff to be in masks. We're going to work on careful monitoring of health and build an educational structure that welcomes the student back, but puts their safety and their health at top priority, all in a Christ-centered environment. So if the listeners would like to know more about Phoenix Christian, I'd encourage you to visit phoenixchristian.org, where students' lives are changed and impacted like Amelia. We're so proud of her, and would like to invite anyone to come by and stop and see our campus at any moment. But visit phoenixchristian.org and be glad to set up a personal tour and share of our heart here to serve your student and your family.
Well, thank you, Jeff, and thank you to our listeners for tuning in today. We're so glad that you picked this episode. You can find additional episodes most places where you get podcasts, and also at phoenixchristian.org/beacon. We want to invite you to have an amazing day in Christ Jesus and to tune in again for the next episode of The Beacon. Thank you for listening in, and God bless you today.